The signal from Zeta Reticuli. Dr. Elias Mercer had spent the better part of his career studying radio signals from distant stars, but nothing in his years of research had prepared him for the signal that had just been detected. It had come from the Zeta Reticuli system, a binary star system located over 40 light-years from Earth. The signal was not a random burst of cosmic noise or an anomaly caused by a passing comet. It was structured, deliberate, and unmistakably artificial. The data was clear. The signal followed a repeating pattern, a sequence of mathematical precision that defied natural occurrence. It was a message, and it had been waiting for someone to listen. Mercer's first instinct was skepticism. He had seen too many false positives, too many misinterpretations of cosmic phenomena that had turned out to be nothing more than the limitations of human perception. But the signal was too precise, too complex to be a coincidence. He ran the data through every known algorithm, cross-referenced it with a catalog of natural radio emissions, and still found no match. The signal was not from Earth, nor was it from any known human-made source. It was something else, something beyond the reach of human understanding. His mind raced with possibilities. Was it a test? A beacon? A warning? The implications were staggering. If the signal was indeed of extraterrestrial origin, it meant that humanity was not alone in the universe. The thought sent a shiver down his spine, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of what it could mean. For centuries, humanity had looked to the stars, searching for signs of life beyond Earth. Was it a test? A beacon? A warning? The implications were staggering. Of war. For the first time, they had found something. Mercer knew he had to act quickly. He secured a private meeting with the head of the Interstellar Research Division, a man who had spent his career preparing for this exact moment. The meeting was brief, but the decision was made. A mission to Zeta Reticuli was necessary. If the signal was a message, then someone had sent it. Someone had sent it to them. The mission would be the most ambitious in human history. It would require the best minds in astrophysics, engineering, and linguistics. It would demand resources, secrecy, and a willingness to confront the unknown. But Mercer had no doubt that this was the right course of action. Humanity had waited for this moment for millennia. Now, at last, they had a chance to find the answer. To the greatest question of all, were they truly alone? As the preparations began, Mercer found himself staring at the data on his screen, his mind already racing ahead. The signal was only the beginning. If they were going to Zeta Reticuli, they would need to be ready for whatever they found there. The universe was vast, and the unknown was waiting. The journey to the unknown. The preparations for the mission to Zeta Reticuli were nothing short of extraordinary. Dr. Mercer and his team worked tirelessly, poring over data, designing spacecraft, and training for the unknown. The ship, Odyssey, was the most advanced vessel ever constructed, a marvel of human engineering capable of faster-than-light travel through a theoretical method known as quantum entanglement propulsion. The technology was still in its infancy, but the success of the first prototype had given them hope. The mission was not just a scientific endeavor, it was a leap of faith into the unknown. The crew was selected with meticulous care. Each member was chosen not only for their expertise, but also for their ability to think outside the box, to adapt, and to work together under pressure. Mercer, as the mission commander, knew that the success of the mission hinged not just on the technology, but on the people aboard. Among the crew was Dr. Lillian Carter, an expert in xenolinguistics, whose knowledge of alien communication systems would be crucial if they encountered intelligent life. There was also Lieutenant James Harrow, a seasoned astronaut with a reputation for calm under fire, and Dr. Anika Patel, a physicist who had spent years studying the properties of dark matter. Among the crew was Dr. Lillian Carter, an expert in xenolinguistics whose knowledge of alien communication systems would be crucial if they encountered intelligent team that was as diverse as it was. Brilliant. The journey to Zeta Reticuli was long, even with the quantum entanglement propulsion. It took them nearly 2 months to reach the system, a time that was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. The crew spent their time preparing for the unknown, running simulations and studying the signal in greater detail. The signal was still a mystery, but it had given them a direction, a faint beacon that guided them toward a planet orbiting one of the stars in the system. The planet, designated as Zeta Reticuli 7, was a world unlike any they had ever seen. It was a blue-green sphere, shrouded in clouds that shimmered with an otherworldly light. As Odyssey approached the planet, the crew watched in awe as the surface came into view. The planet was covered in vast, that guided them toward a planet orbiting one of the stars in the system. The planet, designated as Zeta Reticuli 7, was a world unlike any they had ever seen. It was a blue-green sphere, shrouded in clouds. The planet was sprawling structures that seemed to defy the laws of physics. They were not natural formations, but something else, something built by intelligent hands. The structures were immense, towering above the landscape like the spires of a forgotten civilization. They were made of a material that reflected the sunlight in a way that made it difficult to determine the exact composition. It was as if the planet itself was alive, pulsing with an energy that the crew could not yet understand. The first encounter with the extraterrestrials came unexpectedly. As Odyssey descended into the atmosphere, the crew was met with a sight that left them speechless. A massive vessel, unlike anything they had ever seen, hovered above the planet's surface. It was a dark metallic sphere that seemed to absorb the light around it. The ship was silent, its presence more felt than seen. It was as if the vessel was watching them, waiting for them to make the first move. The crew was stunned. They had prepared for this moment, but nothing could have prepared them for the sheer scale and elegance of the alien technology. The vessel was not just a ship, it was a marvel of engineering, a testament to the ingenuity of a civilization that had long since mastered the stars. As they watched, the ship began to move, slowly descending toward them. The crew could feel the tension in the air, a mixture of awe and trepidation. Dr. Carter was the first to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is it. This is what we've been looking for." Mercer nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. They had come so far, and now they stood on the precipice of the unknown. The alien vessel was close now, and the crew could see that it was not alone. There were other structures in the distance, other vessels, as if an entire civilization was waiting for them. As the ship drew closer, the crew realized that they were not just observers. They were part of something greater, something that would change the course of human history. The first contact had begun, and the universe was watching. A mind beyond human understanding. The alien vessel hovered silently before Odyssey, its surface a seamless expanse of dark metal that reflected no light, as though it existed outside the physical laws that govern the universe. Then, with a motion so smooth it seemed almost imperceptible, the ship opened, a corridor of light, and the universe was watching. Extended outward, beckoning them forward. The crew exchanged uncertain glances, but Mercer knew there was no turning back. As Odyssey passed through the opening, the interior of the alien vessel revealed itself, not a place of cold, sterile machinery, but something far more alien. The walls shimmered with an iridescent sheen, shifting in color as if responding to the presence of the humans. There were no visible controls, no buttons or levers, only an overwhelming sense of presence. It was as though the ship itself was aware of them, watching, waiting. Then a voice, not spoken, but felt. It was not a sound in the traditional sense, but a presence in the mind, a sensation that bypassed the ears and settled directly into the thoughts of the crew. It was not a language in the way humans understood it, but a form of communication that transcended words. Mercer felt at first a flood of images, concepts, and emotions that were not his own. He saw the vastness of the cosmos, the slow, deliberate movement of stars, the birth and death of entire civilizations. He saw the alien raised not as individuals, but as a collective consciousness, a single entity that existed across multiple bodies, across multiple worlds. Dr. Carter gasped as the same flood of understanding washed over her. "They're not just one being," she murmured. "They're a collective, a hive mind." Mercer nodded slowly. "They don't think like we do. They don't perceive the universe in the same way. They're not individual. They're a single intelligence spread across countless forms." The alien presence pressed forward, not with hostility, but with a deep, almost patient curiosity. They were who? Not here to conquer or destroy. They were here to understand, to communicate. The first message came not as words, but as a concept. You are not alone. You are not the first. You are not the last. The message was not a statement, but a revelation. The alien civilization had existed for millennia, long before humanity had even set foot on the moon. They had watched the rise and fall of countless species, had seen the birth of stars and the death of galaxies. To them, humans were not a threat, but a curiosity, a new form of life, one that had finally reached out across the void and made contact. Mercer felt the weight of the message settle over him. This was not just an encounter with an alien species. It was a confrontation with the vastness of the universe, with the insignificance of human history in the grand scale of existence. The alien presence continued, offering more than just a message. They showed the crew the history of their civilization, not in words, but in images and sensations that bypassed the need for language. They had once been like humans, individuals, bound by emotions, driven by ambition and fear. But over time, they had evolved, transcending the limitations of the physical body. They had become something more, something beyond the constraints of biology. And yet, despite their vast knowledge, they were not omniscient. They did not know everything. They had their own uncertainties, their own questions. They had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, had watched as species had reached the stars and then vanished without a trace. They had seen the same fate befall others. Mercer felt the weight of the message settle over him once more. The alien presence was not just offering knowledge. They were warning him. "You are not the first to reach for the stars, and you may not be the last." The message was not a threat, but a challenge, a question, a test. Mercer took a slow breath, his mind reeling. The universe was far older than he had ever imagined, and humanity was but a fleeting moment in its endless expanse. And yet, here they were, standing on the precipice of something greater than themselves, something that would change the course of human history forever. The weight of the unknown. The alien presence did not linger long. The message had been delivered, but it was not a simple exchange of knowledge. They was warning him at its possibility, its seas. There was not a simple exchange of knowledge. It was a revelation, a challenge, and a warning all at once. The crew of Odyssey stood in silence, their minds reeling from the enormity of what they had just experienced. The alien civilization had not come to Earth in conquest or aggression. They had not sent a fleet to subjugate or destroy. They had come to warn. Mercer exhaled slowly, his thoughts racing. "They're not just warning us," he said, his voice steady but laced with unease. "They're telling us something about their own existence. They're showing us the history of their civilization. They've seen others rise and fall." Dr. Carter turned to him, her expression grim. "They're telling us that we may not be the last to reach for the stars. That we may not be the last to disappear." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. The alien presence had not come to Earth with a message of peace, but with a message of warning. And if that was the case, then what was the threat? What catastrophe had befallen the civilizations that had come before? The alien presence did not answer immediately. Instead, they sent another image, more complex than the first. It was not a warning of the past, but a glimpse of the present. Mercer saw it as a flood of sensations, not just images, but emotions, fear, desperation, the weight of an impending catastrophe. The alien civilization was not in decline. They were in crisis. They're under threat, Mercer realized, his voice barely above a whisper. Something is coming. The alien presence confirmed it. The warning of the past, but a glimpse of the present. Mercer saw it as a flood of sensations, not just images but emotions, fear, desperation, the weight of an impending catastrophe. For help. The alien civilization had reached a point where their survival was at stake, and they had turned to humanity not as conquerors or masters but as allies. Dr. Patel stepped forward, her eyes wide. "They're not just warning us about the past. They're asking for our help." Mercer turned to her, his mind racing. "Help with what?" The alien presence did not answer immediately. Instead, they sent a final image, one that left the crew breathless. It was not just a warning of destruction, but a glimpse of the enemy. Mercer saw it as a vast, dark void, a presence that loomed over the stars, consuming entire systems in its wake. It was not a physical force, but something more insidious, a force that did not destroy through violence, but through entropy, through the slow, inevitable decay of all things. "They're not just warning us," Mercer said, his voice tight with realization. "They're telling us that something is coming, and it's not just them, it's us too." The weight of the revelation settled over the crew like a shroud. They had come to Zeta Reticuli in search of knowledge, in search of the unknown. But now they stood on the precipice of something far greater than they had ever imagined. Mercer looked around at his team, at the faces of his fellow scientists and explorers, and knew that they had a choice to make. They could leave, return to Earth, and pretend that this had never happened. They could ignore the warning, ignore the plea for help, and continue on their path as if nothing had changed. But that would be a mistake. The alien civilization had not come to Earth in conquest. They had come to warn, to ask for help. And now the choice was theirs. Mercer turned back to the alien presence, his mind made up. "We can't just leave," he said. "We have to do something." The alien presence did not respond in words, but in a final, overwhelming sense of understanding. They had made their point. The decision was now in human hands, and the universe was waiting to see what they would do. The choice that defined a civilization. Mercer stood at the heart of the alien vessel, the weight of the decision pressing down on him like the gravity of a collapsing star. The alien presence had given them the choice, but it was not an easy one. The threat, the decision was now in human hands. They had glimpsed was not a distant, abstract danger. It was real, imminent, and it would not wait for humanity to decide. If they did nothing, if they turned away and left the alien civilization to face the coming catastrophe alone, the consequences would be unimaginable. But if they chose to act, to intervene, they would be stepping into the unknown with no guarantees of success. The crew of Odyssey was divided. Some, like Dr. Lillian Carter, saw the opportunity to make a difference, to prove that humanity was more than just a fleeting moment in the grand scale of the universe. Others, like Lieutenant James Harrow, were more cautious. They had come to Zeta Reticuli in search of knowledge, not to take sides in a battle that was not their own. "We don't know what we're dealing with." The Concipoli highs. The crew the opportunity to make a difference, to prove that humanity was more than just a fleeting moment in the grand scale of the universe. Harrow said, his voice low but firm. "We've seen the threat, but we don't understand it. We don't even know if we can stop it. If we act without knowing what we're facing, we could be walking into a trap." Dr. Anika Patel crossed her arms, her expression resolute. "And if we do nothing, we're just as likely to be walking into a trap. The alien civilization has already made it clear that they're not the only ones who will be affected. If we don't act now, we may not have another chance." Mercer looked around at his team, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He had spent his life searching for answers, for proof that humanity was not alone. Now, that proof had come, and with it a choice that would shape the future. That alien civilization has already made it clear that they're not the only ones who will be affected. If we act without knowing ones who will be affected, if we don't act now, we may not have another chance. Of both species, the alien presence did not wait for them to decide. They sent another message, not as a warning, but as a challenge. It was not a plea for help, but an invitation to act. They had prepared for this moment, for the day when another species would come to them, not as conquerors or subordinates, but as equals. They had studied the history of the universe, the rise and fall of civilizations, and they had come to the conclusion that survival was not guaranteed. It was not enough to be powerful or advanced. It was not enough to be powerful or advanced. It was not enough to be intelligent. It was not enough to be alone. Survival required cooperations. The alien presence had already begun their preparations. They had built the structure of the universe, the rise and fall of civilizations. It was not up to a conclusion that survival was not guaranteed. It was not enough to be powerful or advanced. It was not enough to be intelligent. It was not enough to be intelligent. It was not enough to be alone, contain and repel the coming threat. But it was not enough. The force that had been glimpsed in the final image was not something that could be stopped with technology alone. It was a force that fed on entropy, on the slow decay of all things. It did not destroy through violence, but through inevitability. It was not a war that could be won with weapons. It was a battle that had to be fought with knowledge, with understanding, with the ability to see the future before it was too late. Mercer turned to his team. "If we're going to do this, we need a plan." Dr. Carter nodded. "We need to understand the nature of the threat. If we can figure out what it is, we might be able to find a way to stop it." Dr. Patel stepped forward. "We need to use the alien technology. They've already built a network of defenses, but they're not enough. If we can combine their knowledge with our own, we might be able to create something that can hold it back." Harrow exhaled sharply. "And if that doesn't work?" Mercer looked at him, his expression grim. "Then we'll have to find another way." The crew worked quickly, using the alien technology to analyze the nature of the threat. They studied the data, ran simulations, and tested the limits of the defenses that had already been built. They found that the force was not a physical entity, but a phenomenon that spread through the fabric of space itself. It was not something that could be destroyed, but something that could be contained if they could find a way to isolate it. The alien presence did not interfere with their work, but they did not need to. They had already made their point. The choice was now in human hands. Mercer stood at the edge of the structure, looking out at the vast expanse of space. The stars above were not just distant lights, but the homes of countless civilizations, some of which had already fallen to the same fate that now threatened them. He had spent his life searching for answers, for proof that humanity was not alone. Now, he had found that proof, and with it a responsibility that would define the future of both species. The alien presence had not come to Earth in conquest or destruction. They had come to warn, to ask for help, and to offer a chance. They had already made their point. The choice was now in human hands. The choice was now in human hands. But proof that humanity was not alone. Now, he came to warn, to ask for help, for cooperation. Now, it was up to humanity to decide what to do with that chance. Mercer turned back to his team, his voice steady. "We don't have much time. If we're going to stop this, we need to act now." The crew of Odyssey had come to Zeta Reticuli in search of knowledge. Now they had a choice that would shape the fate of the universe, and they had chosen to act, the aftermath of a cosmic decision. The days that followed the decision to act were a blur of activity, collaboration, and the weight of a choice that would shape the course of both human and alien civilizations. The crew of Odyssey worked tirelessly, integrating their knowledge with the alien technology to create a defense mechanism. The days that followed the aftermath of a cosmic decision, the days that followed the decision to act were a blur of activity, collaboration, and the weight of a choice that would shape the course of both human and alien civilizations. It was not an easy task. The alien presence had already built a network of defenses, but they were not enough. The force they had glimpsed was not something that could be destroyed with conventional means. It was a phenomenon that fed on the very fabric of existence, a slow, inevitable decay that could not be stopped by force alone. Mercer and his team had to find another way. They studied the alien technology, deciphered the principles behind the structures that had been built to contain the threat, and worked alongside the alien presence to refine their understanding. The alien civilization had already made preparations, but they had not succeeded in halting the force. It was a battle of time, of patience, of understanding the nature of the threat before it could consume everything. The force they had glimpsed between the two species was unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. The alien presence, though vastly different in form and perception, was not hostile. They had made it clear that they had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations before, and they had come to the conclusion that survival required cooperation. They had studied the history of the universe, the patterns of entropy, and the inevitability of decay. They had not come to Earth to conquer or to dominate. They had come to Earth to conquer or to dominate. They had come to warn, to offer knowledge, and to ask for help. And now, humanity had answered. Mercer stood at the edge of the structure, watching as the alien presence worked alongside his team. It was not an easy process. The alien presence did not communicate in the way humans did, but their understanding of the universe was far more advanced than anything humanity had ever conceived. They saw the future in ways that humans could not, and they had already made preparations for the coming threat, but they had not been able to stop it. They had needed help. As the days passed, the crew of Odyssey found themselves changed in ways they had not anticipated. They had come to Zeta Reticuli in search of knowledge, in search of proof that humanity was not alone. Now, they had something far greater. They had a new understanding of the universe, of their place within it, and of the responsibilities that came with that knowledge. Dr. Lillian Carter had always believed that communication was the key to understanding. She had spent her life studying the intricacies of language, of the way different species perceived the world. Now, they had something far greater. They had not been able to stop it. They had a new understanding of the universe, of their place within it, of their place within it, of their Omni Ownbrighter. They had Reader Wellian Carter seen firsthand the power of cooperation, of working together across the vast gulf of time and space to achieve something greater than either species could have done alone. Lieutenant James Harrow, who had once been the most cautious of the crew, had come to see the necessity of action. He had always believed in preparation, in the need to understand the risks before making a decision. But now he had seen the consequences of inaction, and he had made his choice. He had chosen to act, to take a risk that could change the course of history. Dr. Annika Patel had always been fascinated by the mysteries of the universe, by the unknown forces that shape the stars and the galaxies. Now she had found herself standing at the precipice of a discovery that could change the way humanity understood the cosmos. She had seen the force that had been glimpsed in the alien message, and she had helped to find a way to contain it. Mercer, for all his years of searching for answers, had come to a realization that had eluded him for most of his life. The universe was vast, and humanity was but a fleeting moment in its endless expanse. But they were not alone. They had found a civilization that had watched the rise and fall of countless species, that had seen the same fate befall others, and that had come to warn them. They had come not as conquerors, but as allies. As the final preparations were made, the alien presence sent one final message. It was not a warning, nor was it a plea. It was a statement of understanding, of the shared responsibility that came with knowledge. They had made their choice, and now the future of both species would be shaped by the actions they had taken. Mercer looked around at his team, at the people who had come with him on this journey, and he knew that they had made the right choice. They had not just found a new civilization. They had found a new understanding of the universe, of their place within it, and of the responsibilities that came with that knowledge. The stars above were no longer just distant lights. They were the homes of countless civilizations, of countless species, of countless possibilities. And now, humanity had taken its first step towards something greater than itself. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in human history, it was. Not something that had to be feared. It was something that could be shaped, something that could be understood, something that could be shared. And as the final preparations were made, as the last calculations were run, as the final defenses were activated, Mercer knew that they were not just standing on the precipice of the unknown. They were standing at the threshold of something far greater, something that would define the future of both species, the legacy of the stars. As Odyssey prepared for its return journey, the weight of the decision they had made settled over the crew like a quiet but undeniable truth. They had not just found an alien civilization, they had become part of something far greater than themselves. The encounter with the alien presence had not been a simple exchange of knowledge, but a moment of profound understanding, a recognition that humanity was not the first to reach for the stars, nor would it be the last. Mercer stood at the observation deck, gazing out at the vast expanse of space, the same stars that had guided humanity for millennia. He had spent his life searching for answers, for proof that they were not alone. Now he had found that proof, and with it a responsibility that would shape the future of both species. The alien presence had not come to conquer, nor to destroy. They had come to warn, to offer knowledge, and to ask for help, and now humanity had answered. The collaboration between the two civilizations had not been easy. It had required patience, understanding, and the willingness to step beyond the boundaries of human perception. But in the end, it had been possible. The alien presence had shown them that survival was not a matter of strength or technology alone, but of cooperation, of shared knowledge, and of the ability to see beyond the limitations of their own species. As the ship prepared for departure, the alien presence sent one final message. It was not a warning, nor was it a plea. It was a statement of understanding, of the shared responsibility that came with knowledge. They had made their choice, and now the future of both species would be shaped by the actions they had taken. Mercer turned to his team, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. They had come to Zeta Reticuli in search of knowledge, but they had found something far greater. They had found a new understanding of the universe, of their place within it, and of the responsibilities that came with that knowledge. The stars above were no longer just distant lights. They were the homes of countless civilizations, of countless species, of countless possibilities. And now, humanity had taken its first step towards something greater than itself. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in human history, it was not something that had to be feared. It was not something that had to be feared. It was something that could be understood, something that could be shared. And as Odyssey left the system, the message of the alien presence echoed in the minds of all who had been there. They had not just found a new civilization, they had found a new understanding of the universe, of their place within it, and of the responsibilities that came with that knowledge. The stars above were watching, and for the first time, humanity was no longer alone. Do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more stories. Hit the notification bell to be notified of new stories when they become available. Feel free to leave a comment and tell me if you enjoyed the story and want to hear more like it.